I was kind of hoping I could stay out of the dispute over the burning of the Koran scheduled for September 11th by Pastor Terry Jones and members of the Dove World Outreach Center in Gainesville, Florida. I would personally much rather we burn the mortgage on our national debt held by the Red Chinese. But a few news items are coming with bright, waving red warning flags that freedom of speech is at stake. I'm not going to comment on the wisdom of everything said because we have freedom of speech, but I will talk about the wisdom of freedom of speech. General Petraeus says the action has already sparked a Muslim riot at the mere prospect of the burning, and that the burning itself will spark riots and wars across the Muslim world. That will give our military more to do than should be necessary. The Dove Church agrees, but says that doesn't matter. We need to stop bowing to kings. Meanwhile, Brigitte Gabriel, founder of Act for America and normally a strong voice against Sharia law's encroachment on American freedom, calls the action ill-conceived, counterproductive, and unwelcome in a world where ideas and philosophies are best debated in the context of the issues and the facts. We find this an archaic act that serves no useful purpose, and as such is a regrettable instance of an inability or unwillingness to discuss the issues facing us in a reasonable and constructive manner. Pastor Jones and his congregation are stooping to the tactics of and joining the inarticulate who express their anger and opposition through destructive and spiteful acts of denigration. What is the difference between his actions and the actions of Islamists destroying synagogues in Gaza or churches and Bibles in Lebanon, Bosnia, and Egypt? We are better than that as Americans. Meanwhile, the church's insurance has been canceled. Their bank is pulling its mortgage because it is uninsured. And the city has denied the church a burning permit. Yet the church intends to proceed as planned. By the way, I am filming this 2 days before 9/11 on September 9th in the morning. I am not personally a Koran burner. But until now, America has been so committed to freedom of speech and freedom of religious expression that we even permit burning our American flag. Until now, a popular saying among Americans has been, "I may not agree with what you say, but I will defend to the death your right to say it." Now that there is widespread fear that defending your right to say it may indeed risk death, ordinary Americans are not so sure how far they really want to defend their freedom of speech. And that alarms me. It also alarms me that there is widespread fear of Muslim violence, enough to cancel insurance, pull mortgages, and deny burning permits. That means we as a nation no longer perceive the Muslim fanatics, who are already doing all they can to destroy us, as a small but stable minority in a sea of freedom-loving moderates. We now perceive the moderates as unstable enough to erupt into violence over what they choose to find offensive. I understand that American law distinguishes between speech, which is pure words without symbolic actions, and fighting words combined with symbolic actions, such as immersing a crucifix in a jar of urine, or trampling and burning the American flag. But wait, taxpayers rewarded the artist who peed on a crucifix, and I've seen a YouTube video of Muslims trampling and burning an American flag during a street demonstration in America, and hardly anyone paid attention. It is ironic that this month's cover of Voice of the Martyrs features a photo of a burned Bible in communist Laos. In Muslim countries, Muslim mobs burn not only Bibles, but the Christians who carry them inside their torched churches. Are Muslim moderates here indeed so thin-skinned that such a tiny fraction of what Muslims do to others, a single symbolic act of contempt for their religion, can set them into a violent rampage? I should say a single non-violent symbolic act of contempt for their religion. In fact, a Kabul crowd has already burned an American flag and an effigy of Pastor Terry Jones. So why doesn't that placate anyone? Why doesn't anyone say, okay, you're going to burn our Quran, so we burned your flag. Now we're even. No. We nationally expect the burning of 200 Qurans to be met with the slaughter of way more than that many human lives. I don't even know that Muslims are promising as much bloody retaliation as paranoid Americans are publicly expecting. The U.S. Muslim organization CAIR, C-A-I-R, responded not with promises of violence, but with a plan to distribute 200,000 Qurans to replace the 200 burned. That sounds more moderate than Americans are giving them credit for, especially for an organization which has been accused of having strong ties to terrorists. I hope Americans are wrong about Muslim moderates here in America. I hope General Petraeus is wrong about moderates abroad. Now, Open Doors Ministries warns that the victims of Muslim retaliation will be Christians living in Muslim nations. Pictures of the Florida Koran burning will be used to inflame mobs abroad. But how should Americans react if Muslim moderates really are as immature as so many fear? Shall we throw off 4 centuries of freedom of speech to genuflect before anyone who says they have chosen to be so offended by our view of their religion of peace that they will behead us as they are able? Shall we genuflect before the thin-skinned, or shall we stand tall and defend our freedoms against their immaturity? Brigitte Gabriel asks, what is the difference between his actions and the actions of Islamists destroying synagogues in Gaza or churches and Bibles in Lebanon, Bosnia, and Egypt? Well, for one thing, the Tough World Outreach plans to burn its own Qurans, not the property of thousands of others. That is how it was done in Acts 19:19. Many of them also, which used curious arts, brought their books together and burned them before all men, and they counted the price of them and found it 50,000 pieces of silver. Gabriel calls the Dove congregation inarticulate, but an act that focuses the attention of many nations can hardly be called inarticulate. Perhaps manifesto might be a more accurate term. Paul was not inarticulate just because he presided over a book burning. Burning a Koran is a line in the sand. It is not a threat of physical violence like burning a cross on a black family's lawn is. It declares, we are going to exercise our freedom of religious expression to declare that this book is not holy, even if the whole world rises against us. Freedom of religious expression is not only the freedom to declare what we believe, but also to clarify what we don't believe. Gabriel prefers, as we all do, a world where ideas and philosophies are best debated in the context of the issues and the facts in a reasonable and constructive manner. But is that particularly the world we live in today? How about when millions stop their ears to ideas and philosophies and facts and strap on bombs to blow you up? Is there ever a time when a line in the sand is appropriate? She calls Dove's congregation inarticulate who express their anger and opposition through destructive and spiteful acts of denigration. But Dove's congregation will destroy only what they own. They denigrate no man, but a book, which denigrates all of us who believe in the Bible as apes and pigs. God has denigrated a lot of people during his career, along with the religions they call holy. Gideon could not set his nation free until he had desecrated the idols of his father, which were worshipped by their community. They weren't even his own idols. The story is told in Judges 6. Was that inarticulate? Was it a destructive and spiteful act of denigration? Are we not in good company to follow the example of God? I want Muslims in America to have the political freedom to regard their Qurans as holy. Even the Old Testament gave non-believers that much freedom. Deuteronomy 13 criminalizes serving other religions, which includes committing crimes such as human sacrifice, which other religions require. But nowhere in the Bible criminalizes merely believing other religions. This is the same place our U.S. Supreme Court draws the line. Employment Division versus Smith, 494 U.S. 872 in 1990 says, peyote, an illegal drug, peyote use can be outlawed even if it is a religious ritual. However, there is no law against believing in the ritual. I'm not even terribly upset if they want to believe a book that dehumanizes me and my Jewish friends as apes and pigs, which, by the way, is found in Surah 5:60. But I will defend to the death my freedom to expose that kind of dehumanization as a lie. My Bible makes heroes of those who declare the truth, even to those who choose to be offended by truth. It calls them prophets. Jesus offended the Pharisees. 1 Peter 2:8 calls Jesus a rock of offense. The magicians of Acts 19 no doubt chose to be offended by all their dark, superstitious secrets going up in smoke. I understand the standing for truth is costly. I understand that in this case it may mean death. My stand may mean my death. But God decides who or what may hurt me, so it is God, not some hostile human whom I am motivated to please to the extent I care about my own safety.